You're listening to the New Story podcast from New Story Church in Kansas City. To learn more about New Story Church, visit our website at www.newstory.church.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Equip podcast, equipping you to live out your Christian life as you faithfully love God and love others with truth and grace. My name's Jeremy, one of the pastors here, and it is just me today again. This is kind of tying into the last episode we just did, talking about the big, beautiful bill and immigration. So they're kind of tied together a little bit. So I encourage you to go listen to that too, because there's just some precedents we're setting up and how we're talking about these things. But today is another heavy one. As we're just going to talk about some history and some current responses to this Jeffrey Epstein situation. I don't know what else to call it. But I do want to start out with some scripture to kind of set us up, and then we'll dive in because we got some work to do here. I'm trying to go through it. What I can tell you is on the back end of this, my prayer in going through this, why we're going through it, is one, I want to educate you on what's going on here, what has happened, and what is currently happening. And I want to kind of help you, like, here's some knowledge. Now, what do we do with that knowledge? And as Christians, how can we respond to things like this? What can we take away from this? How can we interact with it? That's what I want to. That's been my prayer, and I think we're going to come out on the back end with the ability to do that. But I want to start with Ephesians 5, 11 through 13. Reading from the NIV, Ephesians 5, 11 through 13, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. We know what fruit is, the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, long-suffering, things like that. The darkness does not show these. Have nothing to do with things where that's not present, but rather expose them. It is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret. But everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes light. Essentially, take the light of Christ, who is the light of the world, kick open doors, flip on some lights, and expose these things. Expose the fruitless deeds of darkness. Otherwise, what you may find yourself doing is becoming acquainted with the darkness. Before long, your eyes have adjusted and you don't even realize it. But some of that was in the last episode. But okay, let's get into this a little bit today. I don't have anything else to really kind of preamble stuff to get us going. I just want to go ahead and jump in. You may not know who Jeffrey Epstein was. You probably have heard the name. But in case you don't know, here's some quick history to get us up to where we are today. Jeffrey Epstein kind of came from modest beginnings in Brooklyn. Like, he never graduated college, but even though he never graduated college, he landed a pretty high prestige teaching gig at the elite Dalton School in Manhattan in the 1970s. Like, that was surprising. And that job launched him into kind of the orbit of some very powerful people. And from there, he was hired by the investment bank Bear Stearns, and soon after, he started managing money for the ultra-wealthy that were around him. Though to this day, it's unclear exactly whose money he managed or how he got so rich. And those are questions that we still don't know. How did he get so rich? Where did his money come from? His net worth was rumored to be in the hundreds of millions. So where did that really come from? And there's conspiracy theories on where, but we're not going to dive into those ourselves. Now, the company that he kept, he surrounded himself with some of the most powerful and recognizable figures in the world. People that have pictures with him, like Prince Andrew, from the UK, Bill Clinton, who flew on Epstein's jet several times, the Lolita Express. You have Donald Trump, who famously said Epstein likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. He's got Harvard professors, Wall Street mongols, the scientists, so on. He hosted lavish parties, funded institutions, cultivated influence. All the while, there were some pretty dark rumors swirling of his interactions with young girls. So in 2005, he was first investigated when a 14-year-old girl came forward claiming he had sexually abused her at his Palm Beach mansion, and that really just opened a floodgate. Like dozens of victims came forward, which usually is what happens, and praise God for that. Someone kind of breaks the ice and has the bravery to come forward, and that emboldens others too. But dozens of victims came forward, and here's where it really gets wild. In 2008, despite overwhelming evidence, Epstein struck a sweetheart plea deal with federal prosecutors. He pleaded guilty to 2 state charges of soliciting prostitution, including with a minor, and served just 13 months in a county jail. Again, dozens of victims came forward. A 14-year-old girl said she had been sexually abused. He pleaded guilty to 2 state charges for soliciting prostitution with a minor and served 13 months in a county jail, where he was allowed to leave 6 days a week for work release. Tell me if that sounds like doing time. He also had to register as a sex offender. But this deal was brokered in secret, and victims weren't told about it. And that's why it was pretty shady. From there, we've learned about Little St. James, which is a private island that he had. It became infamous. It was located in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I mean, it's an island still there. It's owned by someone else now. But Epstein purchased the 70-plus acre island in 1998 for around $7 million. And to most people, it was just another billionaire's like tropical hideaway. This stuff happens. But to authorities and to survivors, it became known as Pedophile Island. Now, what happened there? According to testimony from survivors, from investigators, and court documents, the island was used as a secluded location for sex trafficking, especially involving underage girls. Victims were flown in from all over, often under the guise of job offers, modeling gigs, or to help with education. And high-profile guests flew in via private jet or arrived by boat. And surveillance cameras, and then would I won't go into detail. Anyway, surveillance cameras were allegedly placed throughout the property, fueling speculation that Epstein was recording guests to blackmail them, and there's other theories that go along with that. But no official cache of videos has ever been publicly found. Some girls say that they were flown in, abused, and not allowed to leave freely, effectively just held hostage on the island. Flight logs from Epstein's private jet, the Lolita Express, and records from the Virgin Islands Port Authority show numerous trips to the island with both Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell on board, and sometimes other high-profile individuals. Some have confirmed visiting the island but denied seeing or knowing any of the abuse, and others have refused to comment, which is probably just a safer bet on for them. But why the island matter? Why am I bringing that up? The island wasn't just a creepy billionaire getaway. Obviously, it was central to how Epstein isolated his victims, avoided scrutiny, and built leverage over powerful people. It was out of reach from mainland law enforcement. It was controlled by Epstein and staffed with loyal employees, and it was a place where witnesses were silenced and secrets stayed hidden to this day. Even after his 2008 conviction that he had, Epstein continued operating out of the island. That's how untouchable he thought he was. And in many ways, he was. Until 10 years later, he was arrested again. Fast forward to July 2019. Thanks to investigative journalism and public pressure, especially from a lady named Julie K. Brown of the Miami Herald, Epstein was arrested again. this time by federal authorities in New York. He was charged with sex trafficking of minors across state lines, and prosecutors said it was part of a decades-long operation involving dozens, possibly hundreds of underage girls, and according, spoiler alert, to FBI documents that just recently came out, over 1,000. Over 1,000. And 1 month later, on August 10th, 2019, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. Officially, it was ruled a suicide, but quickly, you may, if you were on the internet or around during that time, the Epstein didn't kill himself just became viral very quickly. And it wasn't for no reason. See, he was in a 24-hour surveillance, under 24-hour surveillance for suicide watch. But cameras malfunctioned, the guards fell asleep, cellmate was removed, and the autopsy was even disputed. And so for those reasons, very quickly, Epstein didn't kill himself, became a refrain, and that he was killed by powerful people that were afraid of him testifying. That's conspiracy. We're not going to indulge in that. Now, his confidant and alleged co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, was arrested in 2020, a couple years later, the next year. In 2021, she was convicted of multiple counts related to Epstein's trafficking ring, which, praise God, there's some justice there. And even more on top of that, I'm just trying to think of some aftermath, some fallout here. The U.S. Virgin Islands sued J.P. Morgan Chase in 2022 for enabling the Epstein's operation, basically alleging that the bank ignored red flags while they funneled millions through accounts used to pay out victims and staff. This is why they were loyal. They said that JP ignored money laundering red flags, processed large cash withdrawals tied to recruiting and abusing minors, and remained Epstein's banker for years despite his 2008 conviction and sex offender status. And so in 2023, they settled. JP Morgan Chase settled with U.S. Virgin Islands, designating for $75 million. $55 million of that goes for local charities and anti-sex trafficking efforts, including mental health services for survivors, and then $20 million of it goes to attorney fees. Goodness gracious. But this is pretty precedent-setting for that this happened. This was the first time a state-level Trafficking Victims Protection Act suit targeted a bank. It's a big deal. And a signal to banks that kind of passive compliance is insufficient. Financial institutions have duties to detect and report human trafficking and not just profit off of the money flow. And on top of that, 2 months later, Judge Jed Rakoff approved, this is November 9th, 2 months later, approved a $290 million settlement with nearly 200 women who said Epstein abused them and that J.P. Morgan Chase turned a blind eye to this trafficking scheme. So J.P. Morgan Chase had to pay another $290 million to nearly 200 women in this class action lawsuit. It was led by Jane Doe 1 and others representing victims who claimed J.P. Morgan ignored red flags and maintained while maintaining Epstein accounts from 1998 to 2013. Any others who faced after this, anything else? The only one we have is Prince Andrew was sued and settled out of court with one of Epstein's accusers, and that just went away quietly. Surprise, surprise. And then everyone else has pretty much distanced themselves from him, who were once in his orbit. Now, prior to 2025, the several MAGA voices, Make America Great Again voices like Kash Patel, who is now the FBI director, placed there by Trump, and Dan Bongino, they joined in urging like a full disclosure of these Epstein records that were just sitting there like, hey, name these people that were involved in this. They want a full disclosure of Epstein records, a black book with names, and a client list of alleged powerful associates. And Trump himself even spoke many times that if reelected, he would release the Epstein files, though he was often hesitant in stating it. If you see the actual full clips, he was fairly hesitant. Even when he did mention, it's like, yeah, if I'm reelected, that's what I'll do. Maybe. Well, unfortunately, it didn't go the route many thought it would. February 21st, Attorney General Bondi confidently told Fox News when asked a question. She said the Epstein client list was sitting on her desk, ready to be reviewed and then released to the public, a statement that validated all the base's beliefs about and we're going to have some explosive revelations here. The names are going to come out. Finally, we're going to have justice for these people. We even had a week later, some conservative influencers were invited to the White House and handed these white binders with a cover sheet on them. It said Epstein Files Phase 1, full of information that was showing that these things were declassified. The binders, however, just contained information that was already public domain. So nothing brand new came out of it. And they're like, look, we're doing it. We're doing the thing. And since that point, some of those influencers have come out and feeling like they were just played with. They didn't know fully what was going on, and they were just played with. Because nothing in there wasn't what was already available. Now, let's get to just the last couple weeks, July 6th and 7th, roughly. The DOJ and FBI jointly released a 2-page memo that included saying that no evidence exists of a client list. So this is the FBI headed up by Kash Patel, who was pushing for the full disclosure of Epstein records, the Black Book, the list, all of that. Like he said, put on your big boy pants and show us the list. Now he's there. And this is what the FBI concluded under his leadership. No evidence exists of a client list, a blackmail network, or uncharged third parties tied to Epstein. They also concluded Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide in his 2019 Manhattan jail cell. They found over 300 gigabytes of evidence and hundreds of victims were reviewed, but much remains sealed to protect the minors' identities. It included that they also released approximately 11 hours of surveillance video from the Epstein cell block meant to support the suicide finding. It was from not directly outside his cell, but nearby. The issue with this whole footage thing is that in 2019 there was no such footage in existence, is what they said. There wasn't anything. And then in early 2020 they said it actually did exist, but it was corrupted. But now they presented the footage to the public, but now they came out and said, it's not corrupted. We're going to present it to you. And we're going to present it to you as raw and unedited. But it's never that simple. The first red flag with that is there is a missing 1-minute gap in the video. If you were to watch the video, 11:58 and 58 seconds p.m., it jumps to midnight. The aspect ratio of the video changes, and then boom, we're at midnight, which Attorney General Bondi attributed to just a routine kind of reset of operations that happen every night. Every night, that same minute disappears, the same minute, because the system's resetting. And listen, just personally, if I'm going to talk as Jeremy here, why do I have a better system with my Google Nest doorbell than they do in these high-security prisons like this? Beside the point. Because my Google Nest doesn't have to reset and skip time. Anyway, forensic analysis of the video via Wired and other groups found that nearly 3 minutes, 2 minutes and 53 seconds were missing, not just a minute, even longer than the 1 minute reset. And second red flag, that the video had been stitched together in editing software. It wasn't raw and unedited as they claimed. And metadata showed the use of Adobe Premiere Pro and with multiple modifications to it. So they did not give it raw and unedited, as they said, in an FBI document. Rather, it was edited. So they went from there is no video to oops, the video is corrupted or deleted, to actually here's the video unedited, to never mind, it was edited. And that contradiction, paired up with the 3 minute gap, has reignited public distrust and suspicion of a cover-up. just blew it all up again. After that, several things happened. One in particular, there was a conference meeting with the media, and somebody asked a question in light of this, asked a question about Jeffrey Epstein, and Trump interjected and said, "Are you still talking about this guy?" When we have all this other stuff going on, we have what's happening in Texas, we have all this other stuff, we're winning like never before. Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? Which to me personally just sounds like, hey, look over here. Don't worry about that. Just look over here. Then he goes on Truth Social, his social media app that he created, or his team created, and he posts, and what he does is he labels the whole thing as just boring. He calls it a Democratic hoax. The Jeffrey Epstein hoax. And that it was fueled by figures like Obama and Biden and Comey and the Clintons. He defended Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, labeling her work as fantastic, and called critics stupid for demanding the files. And was telling his supporters, hey, quit wasting time on Epstein. Why? And he said, why didn't these radical left lunatics release the this is quote verbatim, why didn't these radical left lunatics release the Epstein files? Like when Biden was in office. If there was anything in there that could hurt MAGA movement, why didn't they use it? Which, fair point. If they wanted to hurt the MAGA movement, why wouldn't they release that? Well, one, could be that some of them might be implicated in that. But Trump here is trying to make the point that they would have used it to hurt Donald Trump if there was something in there. So there's obviously not anything in there, or else they would have used it. And so my thought is, well, since there isn't, if you're using that argument, since there isn't, why not show it all then? I'm not going to answer that. But as of today, June 16th, 2025, or July 16th, 2025, he posted their new scam, the Democrats' new scam, is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. And my past supporters, speaking of people who are now critical of him because of this, he says, they're my past supporters. You're no friends of mine. My past supporters have bought into this BS. I'm not going to say the word bull, They've bought into it hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson. Speaking of people who want to hear or want the Epstein files released, they haven't learned their lesson and probably never will, even after being conned by the lunatic left for 8 long years. There's a lot of strong words coming out of the Trump administration and from Trump himself regarding this. What started as, hey, we'll release it. We'll make the information known. Has come to, no, this is actually all a hoax written by the radical left lunatics, and you need to pay no attention to it or else you're no friend of mine. This should bother you. As a Christian, this should really bother you. This is not trustworthy behavior. He ran on draining the swamp and lifting up the blue-collar worker. And over the past several months, he has prioritized giving tax cuts to the rich that will hurt the poor, and is now calling his supporters stupid for wanting these people exposed for their evil deeds. That should bother you. That's not something that earns your trust blindly. And personally, this is what happens in my mind, so take it with a grain of salt. This is just Jeremy talking here, okay? If it was me and I was in his situation, I would release it to prove that I wasn't there. I would release all the information to prove I am not implicated in this. Unless I was. I'd show it all to prove I wasn't there. Unless I was. That's what goes on in my mind, okay? Take it with a grain of salt. But the reality with this situation regarding this administration is that you are either covering up the abuse of over 1,000 people and minors. You're either covering it up, the abuse of over 1,000 people or minors, or you exploited the abuse of over 1,000 minors to get elected. In the position you are in right now, you're either covering it up or you exploited the abuse of them. Which side do you want to be on? Which side do you want your guy to be on? Both sides require accountability, and we're being told, this is tired, it's boring, just move on. We're not going to give in to conspiracies or anything, but when you peddle something like this for so long, and then just try to bait and switch out of it, it's no accountability, and it's just exploitative. See, as followers of Jesus, we are called to live in the light. It's not just metaphorically, but it's in how we think, how we speak, and how we respond to the brokenness in this world. Again, Ephesians 5:11-13 have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. It is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret, but everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light. This passage doesn't call us to chase shadows or like conspiracies or indulge in every rumor or theory. It calls us to walk in truth, expose darkness, not for the entertainment, not for outrage, but for the sake of healing, for the sake of accountability, and for the sake of justice. So as Christians, we approach stories like Epstein's not to satisfy our curiosity or stir up conspiracies, but because the gospel compels us to stand with the oppressed, to seek truth, and to shine light into places others would rather keep hidden. And we have to be careful not to fall into speculation for speculation's sake. I'm trying to be very guarded on that here, because that just becomes a distraction. Conspiracies often thrive where trust is broken down. And that's part of what's happening here. But light doesn't guess. Light reveals. Light is honest, it's patient, and it's discerning. Our response isn't to amplify every theory, but to ask what is true, what is just, how do we advocate for those who have been silenced? And how do we pursue truth without paranoia and justice without vengeance? Church, I pray that we can be people who are slow to assume, but we are quick to care. Slow to spread rumors, but quick to pursue truth in love. Because Jesus didn't come to entertain our suspicions. He came to set captives free, including those trapped in systems of abuse, secrecy, and silence. We have a responsibility to give voice to the voiceless. To stand for the poor, the sick, the marginalized, the stranger. And as Jesus said in Matthew 25, how we treat them is how we treat him. That's where I'll leave that. And I know that's kind of heavy, but there's no real good way to wrap up a story like that, other than let's not be part of the problem, church. Let's be honest. Let's call a spade a spade. It is okay to say that, hey, maybe the guy I voted for isn't being honest here. That's integrity. And let's prioritize that over just trying to be right. I'll leave it there. Thank you for listening in. This has been the Equip Podcast, equipping you to live out your Christian life as you faithfully love God and love others with truth and grace. Now let's go do it.